On Fox, one of the attorneys for Alex Murdaugh, Jim Griffin, sitting down with me for a one-on-one interview. His client, a former attorney and part of a four-generation law family in the Low Country, is facing a number of charges, including insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false police report. The charges stem from the September 4th shooting, in which Alex Murdaugh says he tried to fake his own killing. He hired his drug dealer to make it look like a random shooting along the side of the road. As we all know, Alex survived, and both men ended up being arrested days later. The botched shooting happened 89 days after Alex Murdaugh found his wife Maggie and son Paul shot to death on their property in Colleton County. A double homicide that remains unsolved. Murdaugh is being sued for stealing what could be in the millions of dollars from his law firm. There's also allegations he's stolen millions from his clients. It also comes out that Alex has hid an opioid addiction for up to 2 decades. Now, we've had a series of bombshell revelations, unsolved crimes, and 6 active investigations underway, all tied to the Murdaugh family that have captured national and international attention. The big question is, who killed Alex's wife and youngest son, Paul? While no suspect has been named, Alex Murdaugh is a person of interest.
SLED has said from the get-go that Alec was a person of interest. SLED said the next morning, which is still mind-boggling to us, that the public need not be worried about their safety, which I've talked to people who heard that, and first the thoughts were it must have been a murder-suicide. We know that wasn't the case. Then the second thought is it must be some domestic related. And when you look at domestic violence, who you look at? You look at the husband or father, but SLED's identified Alec as a person of interest. They've never eliminated him as a person of interest. And you would think that if Alec was the one who did it, that SLED would have been able to establish that pretty easily that night. You would think they would have searched his house. You would found blood somewhere. You would think they would have found the murder weapons on the property. You would have think they would have come up with something to link Alec to the murders forensically or independent evidence. And to my knowledge, they've not done that. Now, they're not sharing any information, but I believe if they had that, they would have charged Alec, and they've not charged him. What we do know as his lawyers is that he had no motive to kill them. He loved his wife. He loved his son. The murders were done in the most brutal fashion. There were 2 separate weapons, and we have. I've got the benefit of downloading Alex's phone, and I have all of his text messages between Alex and Maggie going back years, and there is no hint of domestic dispute in any of those messages. They sign off, I love you more, hey babe, are you still up? In the spring, Maggie was spending a lot of time at their house in Eddystone because they were renovating it, but every night they would sign off via text, and it was a good night, it was I love you, and I can assure you that we have Alex's whereabouts and accounted for completely during that period of time. That night, he's sitting on the bedside of his mother at her house when the coroner says these murders happen. She has dementia. There's a house sitter, caregiver, round-the-clock care, with him, and they're watching a game show television. They're watching a game show on television. On the way over, he spoke to his friends and communicated about business, and he called his dad, who was in the hospital. He didn't do it. I feel strongly he didn't do it. I mean, I thought the world of Paul, and Maggie, and I just.
Any idea? I mean, what would be a motive to randomly go on that property and kill those 2, knowing that he wasn't there?
That's something that that remains. I don't have any idea now. I am looking forward to the opportunity to sit down with Alec and sort of peel back more layers of this onion as to what he's been involved in, to see if there is, someone out there that would have reason to do this? I mean, I don't have an answer.
Jim Griffin told me Alex Murdaugh confided in him about his opioid addiction, one that he claims went on for up to 20 years. I also learned during the interview that Alex Murdaugh tried to get help in the past.
I can tell you that it was a surprise to a lot of people in how he was able to mask it, and I didn't know. It was a real surprise to me. I know that it has been a struggle of his, and I know that now. But I also have learned that he has previously gone to medical detox, but he had never stayed to the second phase. And it's my understanding that through the medical detox in the past, was a week, and his explanation to his friends and coworkers was that he went on a trip. He was going to a golfing outing or some sort of vacation, but he did not come clean with those that he worked with, that he was actually going through detox.
Now, you heard Jim Griffin say Alex Murdaugh remains a person of interest in the killings of his wife and son. And as Alex's attorney, he doubled down on the fact he doesn't believe Alex is responsible for their deaths. I pressed him on the fact his client admitted to having a drug addiction.
Who kills a mother and a son unless they're under some delusional state, and it's out of mind, out of body experience? There's no reason for that to occur. He's not a guy who went had some out of body experience.
And he wasn't. You don't think it could be big opioids? He wasn't high. At that time, just out of his mind on highness, or.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody, who's ever been around him in the last couple of years, he's been on opioids, and he's acting normal. And he was acting normal that night.
Over the 20 years of an opioid addiction, you do some crazy things. You get involved with some shady people, some bad people.
Right.
Do you think that when you start peeling back those layers, it's going to lead up to where we are today? That
I think
it wasn't Alex Murdaugh, it was an action, or it's a connection, or because when you go down that path, it takes you down some really bad places.
it sure does, and I think this is a door that we didn't know existed until September 3rd or 4th. And I think it's a door that is worthwhile pursuing, going down that hallway to find out, is there something at the end that he or those he was acquiring these drugs from, did he owe money, or did the middleman skim money and blame it on Alec? Was that a driver of this? I don't know, but it certainly gives a whole another avenue of inquiry that we didn't know existed. No one wants to solve this murder as much as Alec, his brothers, Maggie's mom and dad, Maggie's sister, Maggie's brother, Buster. No one wants to solve it more. And so, we're gonna explore that with Alec as soon as he's able to. I can tell you that if in my heart of hearts I thought Alec had any role in the death of Maggie and Paul, I wouldn't be so aggressively defending him. And I've not been hired to represent him on the murder case because he hasn't been charged. And I do think if it ever went down that road, because of all this other things he did, that would be a grave injustice, and I would stand up against any injustice that I see.
Alex Murdaugh has not been charged with anything in connection to Maggie and Paul's deaths. He's only been named a person of interest. Coming up on the 11 o'clock news, the conversation between Jim and Alex they had just hours prior to the day that he faked his own killing. Plus his reaction when Alex walked into the courtroom with not even a bandage on his head 12 days after allegedly being shot in the head. That's coming up at 11.